Thank you very much, Herman, for the nice introduction. To compliment that one, I'm known to be a troublemaker in my department. So, so you never know how am I going to end up with the talk. So, so some part of this talk is coming from the backed up by the references. So it is existing board statistics. So we cannot really avoid them. Some of them are on my own opinion. So they are not affiliated with any organization or institutes. But as you can imagine, the topic itself, we already had like an expert in here. I didn't know, so he was very expert in that area. So I'm going to be like a second person. I assume that there is no other expert. uh, but uh, but whenever I have a question, I'm going to go and ask Louis about the situation. But anyway, so the talk is about the generative AI, and we want to actually know what this AI is all about. So from the scientific perspective, like myself, we are working on developing some algorithms, some models to do some crazy stuff. But when it comes to really practicing or the transitioning those algorithms to practice, we never think about what is consequences of bringing some technology to the society. Okay, so it becomes like a question: what is the consequences of the perhaps not the deep learning, but the generative AI in big picture to the society? Okay, so it is like a wake up call for most of the industry to see what this generative AI is all about, what benefit they can bring it for them, and what is the trade-offs in general in terms of the bringing like a more profit to the company or not. Okay, that is the whole story. We know that generative AI, we have heard, we, perhaps we don't know, we have heard that the generative AI is going to be actually useful for us. So I'm sharing YouTube with one of my meetings with one of my PhD students recently, and I asked him what area you are working on, and he said that just the topic that the entire planet is working on. And then that got my attention. We never had any agreement on anything from the since of the beginning of the human on this planet. At least we have some agreement on something that we can work on it, generative AI. So that got my attention. And then, so I have like a 7 PhD students. I can say that all seven, they are working on generative AI. And master students, no matter what they are actually doing, they are all interested in generative AI. So the question is that, so what is that all about the generative AI in general? So how we are going to, uh, is it our opponent or is it like our helper? What you're going to actually deal with that situation. As I mentioned in the morning session, it is we don't know what kind of animal you're dealing with. Is it like I think the industrial evolution was back in 16th century, and in that time there's a differences between that time and right now. In that time, the human race or the humanity did not feel its full capacity. Right now, we are at the peak, and we are at the peak with how many billion people? 7, 8 billion people. So we are at the peak with limited resources, and we are changing the game, and we do not know how that game is going to end up. And if you are interested to see what is inside the pool, is a tiger. So it's a tiger in that pool that just resembles what kind of risk we are actually we are going to have with this AI or generative AI to the society, to our position as a human and the remaining part. Okay, so there is a AI syndrome. So the question is that what should we do as a decision maker, as a politician, as a those people who are actually working at the higher level, at the government level, like political leaders, investors, or those kind of people. The question is that with my limited budget, how am I supposed to invest on this game, and whether it is beneficial for me as a leader of the country or not? Should I just follow the flags, whatever they do? I just follow whatever they are doing, and eventually we may end up like losing some money, but that money is my all fortune that I have for my country. So there are some confusion about how much you're talking about the investment, but the question is that how much investment I need to put in order not to lose the game, but at the same time have the chance to gain something. So that is a gray part. We do not know. No one knows. And no one knows because it is played by the big people, big guys, rather than the small people, okay? So you can imagine that the battle has already begun between that famous things that everybody knows, ChatGPT, or the generative AI, and the brain, okay? So let's go and back up our discussion, or start off our discussion with some reliable report, which is published recently by the UN report 2025, which is given in here on the very, very last line. Technology and Innovation Report, Inclusive Artificial Intelligence for the Development. And according to that report, in 2023, the AI's market share or market growing was 189 billion. And you can guess how much is going to be in 2033. Take a guess. $4.8 trillion. It looks to me like a jungle rather than a pattern in the data. I'm doing like a data analytics for my entire life. This one looks like a jungle, doesn't have any pattern, unless you can say that there is a red dot, red, well, and green, which are just interfering to each other. But as you can see, it is like a 25% in the AI market growth from 2023 to 2033. And that is a massive growth. In terms of the frontier technology market, it was back in 2023, 7% of the global frontier technology market, right? But in 2033 is going to be 29% of the global frontier. And yeah, maybe I can tell it later on. I noticed that the PowerPoint is in German. I had some comment and some note over there, so I cannot read it. So I just skipped those notes. Okay, so yeah, that's fine. Okay, so in terms of the frontier, AI shares of the frontier technology in 2023 was 7% for the artificial intelligence, which was like a fourth rank for the fourth place in terms of the technology and then some other services. And in 2033 is going to be 29%. But something I noticed, I think I'm especially in debugging the code, something I noticed that this picture is not from me. This picture is coming from the UN. And something I noticed that the left side does not sum up to 100%. It is 98%. And there is a message in here, I don't know, I look at everything like it's suspicious. That 2%, where was that 2%? Who got it? There's a 2% missing technology market back in 2023. But the right column is 2033, it sums up to 100%. And the report is coming from the UN report, which is from UN. Does it indicate that AI is going to help me to get rid of those bad guys? I do not know. It is quite complex. I do not know. But 22% was missing in 2023, according to the report. Then, so how we are working is that, so the AI is actually shaping anything from content creation and product design to automated coding and customer services. You can imagine that whatever you have, so sometimes in my class, which I am teaching like a reinforcement learning, I tell them that whenever you have data and you want to actually make informed decision, you have the role of the AI, either in a positive way or negative way. And even it shapes the way that we are actually working on, and eventually it changes our attitude or behavior towards the society, towards the environment. So how about its effect on different economies? So the first row, you see that this is like a yellow, and that yellow is actually representing advanced economies, like a leading developed economies, like the US, or maybe most of the EU part. And then you can imagine that the AI is, if you look at that part in here, AI is going to affect 1/3 of the jobs in advanced economies, meaning that it is negatively or positively, we do not know. they are not saying that it is going to replace the jobs. They are saying that it is going to actually improve the jobs. Even this UN report is saying that way. And the right side, it says that, yes, they have the leverage to actually work on it and even improve it better, the job environment. But if you go to the lower part, these low-income economies, like third world countries, they do not have that kind of lever to improve it, okay? So then the question is that, how's the situation? So I have it, my note in here is English, okay? So AI development is highly concentrated. So that's the problem that we see right now in terms of the fair distribution of the AI and the resources. So I have some statistics in here. Just 100 companies funded 40% of research and development in 2022. None of them are based in developing countries except China. If you consider China as a developing countries, I believe that the developing countries, correct me if I'm wrong, it is based on the GDP. And the GDP on China is still low compared to the other countries. But in terms of the technology, they are very, very advanced. So that is the reason that China is still considered to be it is considered to be a developing countries rather than developed countries because of that low GDP. But surprisingly, the United States and China, they both have like an account for the 30% of all AI scientific publications and 60% of all innovation in the form of AI patents. Okay, you see that the race is very, very tense. So there are some predictions in here in terms of what we are expecting out of this competition, at least between two US and China in terms of the AI, and also the EU, which is trying to catch up. So the imbalance is also seen in the AI infrastructure, I can say that. So it is all about like who is going to actually start that data centers first, which is what we call it like an infrastructure needed for establishing an AI-based society. And those data centers or the infrastructure are dominated by the US and China, okay? For instance, US, I believe that it has more than, I think I cannot go back with this one. Yeah, here we go. US, I believe that it has more than, if I can see that the statistic, if I have, more than, mostly, I don't have the statistics, but it says that most supercomputers and data centers are in developed countries, and they have a skill power as well that they can actually leverage it for their own purpose. And how about the productivity? So you can see that 40% of the job over worldwide is going to be affected by the AI, either in the negative or positive way. The officials like UN, they are saying positive way, but we, as a scientist, we know that there is also a downside of that adoption of AI in the negative way, and they are not talking about that. And then, so as you can see here in the last line, it says that in advanced economies, like a leading higher economies like US, 27% of the job could be enhanced by AI. And there is no discussion about what jobs are going to be eliminated in the teams unless you see some news or someone talks about the future of AI, which we will go over it and see which one is actually making sense for our case. So let's go a little bit like two cases I have in here, one case for Europe and another case for Latin America. So the case for Europe is maybe you're just interested in the blue line, and the blue line shows AI adoption rate. I do not know how do they compute that AI adoption rate, but you can see that the EU countries are aggressively going for the adoption of the AI in their workforce, okay? The interesting part is this Austria, which I was seeing, it was the last night in a poster session, and there was a poster saying that the history of Austrian neutralism or neutrality. So even I have some discussion with my colleague at St. Pölten. They say that Austria tries to remain neutral all the time. So you can see that the Austria is actually showing some kind of like a mean value or representing the mean value of the Europe in general. out of consequences or no, I do not know. But Norway, Luxembourg, I believe that this is Switzerland, are heavily invested on adaptation um, of AI. I do not know about the GDP. I do not know about the economic situation, what motivates them to invest on AI. Perhaps this is a decision done by their politicians. Maybe we can ask Louis later on. She knows a little bit more than that. She knows more than I do. But that is the things that I do not know. So, but let's go a little bit like in Latin America. What is the situation with the Latin America? In Latin America, the red one is the technology or the sections, economic sections, which are going to be affected by the AI. So the red one are actually showing those high exposure, whereas the blue one, which is in here, they are actually showing the low exposure compared to the US and UK. Okay, and you can see that like if the Chile, for instance, is performing comparably well compared to the others. I'm correcting myself comparatively well. I do not have the definition of what means good or bad when it comes to the AI investment. So I do not know whether it is well or bad decision for even Chile. So I just withdraw my statement. I do not know. Okay. And this is the graph that we have based on some index in terms of the adaptability of the productivity. You can see that the Chile is in the top, Brazil is following, and there are some other countries over there. Okay. Again, this is the report done by some other studies, like a 10 and 11. I have provided the references at the end. I'm not going to come and talk without any references or backup statements. So these are all studied or provided by the existing work. So the question is that how we are going to actually adopt or be ready for this AI. How is going to be look like in future or even currently? So the first question is that we need to understand the workforce dynamics. So again, I'm going back to that report, like a UN from the UN, and the UN report is very, very optimistic when it comes to the AI adoption. So I'm going to be staying on the optimistic side. So saying that, yes, we need to come up with some understanding of the workforce dynamics, which means that we need to understand and interact with the employee who are going to be affected by the AI, and then come up with some agreement that the adoption of the AI is beneficial for them. Accelerate AI adoption, that is again, perhaps it is not my statement, it is the UN statement in the positive side, say that, yeah, we need to actually invest on AI, and then we need to come up with something called like a national AI policies or national AI initiatives to see how we can actually leverage the opportunities that may come up with the AI for our own workload. Empower workers just to make sure that we are not threatening them with losing their jobs, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is not my statement. This is the UN statement from the positive side. And then we see the negative side later on, whether they make sense or maybe we just need to see which one makes more sense in reality. And then promote human complementary AI, assuming that you are saying that to your employee that AI is going to help you with the reduced workload and you're going to be having more time for your relaxation. And if you can come up with that argument, then perhaps you are on the win side. But reality is different. We will see later on. So in terms of the readiness, you see that the blue versus red versus green, those blue dots are the developed countries, the yellow one are the developing countries, and then the green ones are the least developed countries. And then this one is not based on the GDP. As you can see here on the y-axis, it is based on the advanced degree, the number of the people of that population they have, versus the number of the share of the developers compared to the working age population. So it's a combination, a function of the combination of the working age or the developer's age versus the advanced degree. I do not know whether it makes sense or not. I need to actually investigate on that one. But as you can see here, you can see that the developed countries are kind of like leaders all over in here, with some exception. like this dot and this dot and this dot, and the remaining one in here, they are trying to catch up, and these are all far away from the reality or whatever the trend is, okay? So in terms of the leaders, the readiness, the most developed countries are leaders, as we can see. United States in here, Sweden, Norway, Estonia, Iceland, Israel, Ukraine, surprisingly, is in here because of the situation that they have in the country back in 2023, which is very admirable. And then we have some other countries in here. Some of them are, as I said, like developing countries trying to catch up the situation. And then you can see that the least developed countries are all at the bottom of the picture. Okay. So this is the map of the developing countries all over spread all over. Perhaps it shows that there are some uncertainty with whether they are going to adopt AI or not. They haven't made the decision. For instance, Singapore, I can imagine that they have to make the decision to go for AI all in, versus, for instance, Brazil is still like very advanced in AI, but the China is very surprising that it is in here. As I mentioned, this graph may not look meaningful if you look at the situation with China, especially with China, because China shouldn't be in that situation according to what we observe from the performance. And then there are some other index that shows that how they are actually looking like in terms of the readiness. United States looks like very ready because of the tons of the access to the human skills people. United Kingdom is the same, and some developing countries trying to actually catch up, okay? And then, as I mentioned, our perhaps focus is a little bit on four countries: China, Brazil, India, and surprisingly, the Philippines. And as you can see here, most of them, these all four are on the left side. And the left side means that the frontier technology is higher than expected versus the domestic GDP. That GDP is not very reflecting where these four countries are in terms of this technology, okay? So one of the recommendations by this UN report is that try to start the initial like a national level AI strategy, so you can actually work on it and then adopt it for your country. And from the developing countries, only two-thirds of the developed countries, they have already started working on. And then the national AI strategy for the developing countries is still in there. Not all of them, they have developed the national AI strategy. But what is the essential elements? What are the essential elements when it comes to the adoption of AI? So the three components that we need: infrastructure, which we already know, which is very expensive. You need to have supercomputers. You need to have cooling system. You need to have servers. You need to have data, which is coming from the second part. And the data itself, according again to the UN report, I assume that they are talking about like a freely available data, but the data, if you have the data, you have the knowledge. Who's going to give you the data? I mean, forget it, some generative AI scrapped our data on the internet, and then they train their own model, and then we have to pay for that model because it is using our own data. So that's the dilemma that we have with that kind of like a free data, but that data that we have on the internet is not for free. And the data that is come from the government or national level, they are not for free, and they have some protected data which are not going to actually share with anybody. Yes, we have some strategy like accelerated learning to actually overcome with that problem, but it's not going to be helpful in international level. And the most important part is that who is going to actually run this situation, what kind of skill set we need, okay? So in terms of the global collaboration, these are the recommendations by the UN report: industry accountability framework. You need to actually come up with a framework and inclusive approach, which means that you invite industry from different sectors to invest on it. Shared digital infrastructure, again, that is a big picture. Not too many countries are interested in providing or offering their data to a shared environment because of the security issues and national security. Open innovation in the form of the patent, in the form of the collaboration, and the question or the findings by the UN report. By 2033, AI can affect about or over 40% of the jobs in the world. That is a red flag and also green flag. We can discuss it offline, why it is red and why it is green. We can look at it differently or interpret that statement differently. The technology can create opportunities for economic growth and productivity, but the question is that opportunity available for me or not? Is it accessible? And then you already know, or perhaps most of the Austrian people, they know that statement, there is a hope, though not for us. Yes. Okay? So it can also depend, or it will depend on widen inequality between rich and poor that it is shown in here, and also the developed and the developing countries. So not so fast. So these are all, at least most of the positive cases. Let's look at the problem of the AI adoption from different angles, at least from my side. So from here, it is my own opinion to see what the situation is. Blind adoption may end up like this. We do not know what kind of things you are creating or what you are getting into. Or like this. I'm not sure how many of you have seen this iconic movie from Charlie Chaplin. Still, it is applicable. Or be out of control, AI. And still meaningful how it can be out of control. Or even racing against us.
But
And eventually it tells us to something that we do not know what that is. So I came up with the term for that, and that is called the humanized human. So we look like human, but we are not in reality. So eventually, not to offend anybody, we even lose our identity if we just jump into the AI without knowing what our niche are. Okay? So let's go back to some studies that they have done in the UK. 55% of the UK businesses report that they have regretted why they have adopted generative AI in their workforce. 2 in 5 leaders still don't understand the AI's impact on the business, with 25% unsure which roles are most at risk from AI. But still, even though they know that it is a high risk, they follow the trend and they invest on the AI market. Again, backing up with the references, UK-based study, it shows that the adaptation has caused confusion about what my role is as an employee of this organization. It has even kicked back in terms of the productivity. It has dropped, the productivity has been dropped. Nearly half, or 47%, fear uncontrolled AI usage by employees, with 4 in 5 planning to retrain employees to use the tools properly. Okay? Yeah. And then even the CEOs have fear. CEOs have fear, they have the fear of losing their jobs, because if they do not adopt AI in a successful manner, they may lose their jobs. Okay? And there is something called AI washing, or what we call it, like a falsely claiming AI using the technology, but it is not. It is just an imagination or the delusion. Okay? So there are some uncertainty that is caused by the adaptation of the AI. And according to the statistics that which I see on the screen, it is affecting 40% of the French companies. 30, they have canceled the project. I also canceled some of the projects that I had in my own startup company because we are in the transition. There is nothing certain. 40% of the companies in the French companies, they have canceled the project. 33% German companies, they have canceled the project. 1 out of 5 of the UK companies, they have canceled the project. And I know what they are doing, why they are doing it, because we are in the transition and we do not want to develop a technology which belongs to the old technology, which no one is going to use it. And sooner or later, it becomes very obsolete. And there is also the EU AI Act, which the European countries, they have come up with for the regularization. And then there are some reports saying that there is some confusion about how to actually use that EU AI Act in reality. So the message short is that we need greater control and governance, but what are the consequences to us as an employee, or in terms of the income inequality, in terms of the economics? So we say that it might widen the income inequality or inequality in general, because the rich gets richer, poor gets poorer. But they also can be the other side. They can claim that, or they can play the game differently. They say that we are filling the gap or reducing the income inequality between rich and poor in a different way. So imagine that you have a skilled worker who is asking for $250,000 or $300,000, like in the Bay Area. And then if you say that, okay, you have another person who can do it the same exactly what you do, 10 times even faster, with half of the money, I'm not going to pay you $300,000 anymore. I'm going to pay you $100,000. And that one fills the gap between the person who is actually making more money versus the person who is actually making less money. That is called reduction in the income inequality. That's the game that they play. And I'm not sure how many of you have seen this video. So it is actually creating intensive workloads or the workplace. So this is an office in China. And as you can see here, the soon that she leaves the chair, the surveillance system is deducting salary from her payments. And imagine that if you have some health problem that you need to actually stand up and leave the desk, you're going to actually reduce the salary of that. So this kind of technology, I have heard that there are some technology in the Bay Area that they have adopted the same surveillance camera in the office, and you're deducting salary whenever you're leaving your desk. Okay. What else we have? So sectors already impacted by AI. So you can see that telecommunication and communication, banking and insurance, oil and gas, retail and consumer, media and entertainment, which you already know that from the morning session, healthcare and life sciences, and goes down, public sectors. These are the most impacted by the AI, by another reference. And this is the sectors already impacted by not AI, but we call it like an LLM, which means that they're adopting LLM ChatGPT in their workforce. You see that the banking system is actually one of them, insurance is the second one. So you can just read it, and then you can see that like the purple color is the higher potential for the automation. The green color is the higher potential for the augmentation. As you can see, that banking system, those people who are actually working in the banking system, they may be in the risk of losing their jobs because of this system. Maybe it is not like losing all their jobs, but it is something. Okay, so let's go back to what people are talking about the AI. Like not like me, who is unknown, but the leaders. I'm not sure how many of you know this Hinton, the godfather of AI. And he's saying that the board is not prepared for what is coming from the AI. I wish I knew that most of the audiences are teachers. I would have removed this sentence or this slide. And it is not my statement, it is the other statement. And this is the consequences of that statement. That is true reality we have to face. We can talk or argue in offline. It is my opinion. I respect everybody's opinion, but that is what we are talking about. So the 2-day work week, as AI is set to replace humans for most jobs within a decade. And this is my conversation somewhere I had conversation. I asked them, what do you think of the AI 2-day work week? And they said that they loved it, not in the US, in Europe. And I said that, okay, but you get paid for only 2 days of your workload. And then who's going to pay for your remaining 5 days of your life? And they said that no worries, the government will take care of us. We have a great social system. And whether I have any problem with that one or not, and they love their system. But that is European countries. Let's go to the other side of the planet and see how they are working. 9 to 9 working culture. I was there last summer, Friday night until 4 o'clock. All the buildings, the lights were on, working until 4 o'clock the Friday night. Saturday night, all the lights were on until 12 o'clock. The only day that I saw that the buildings are off, it was on Sunday, which they go for the cleaning at home. And some people even sleep at the office because the workload is very, very massive. And you can imagine that why they have become the pioneer in the science and technology. Okay, that is the reality we have to face. And then the question is that whether we are living in our own world, bubble, whatever it is, you can call it. And then the question is that how we are going to participate in this race with the given limited resources that we have. Should we just go all in regardless of what potential we have or whatever things that we think that it is good? Or what if we cannot really cope up with the situation? If we cannot really compete with the big guys, what is the best situation? I put all the monies, resources in that as a leader of a country, and eventually I lost everything. I think that they are recording it, but some countries in Central America, they have put a lot of money in crypto, purchasing crypto. I don't think that that's the right decision to do, especially whenever you're dealing with the peoples of your country. And then maybe you can come up with your own game to actually play and win the game, win the race, which might be a little bit effective in general on how to win the game. But anyway, so Al Salman also says that AI is not going to replace anything, but it is making 10 times faster developer. And what the consequences is that a few software engineers, they get the job they want, they work 24/7 to make millions of dollars. Okay, I'm trying to finish. And the impact is that the remaining majority of the software engineers will become jobless on the market. And there are some other studies, as you can see here, 17 reference on the number 17. They say that the generative AI is actually tearing apart companies. Okay, generative AI doesn't do anything good, but it's just adding additional workload to their things. And even the Hinton, the Godfather, says that I'm glad that I'm 77 years old. I don't have to see how when the technology is coming over to take our jobs. And then the question is that what would happen to us in 2050? Back in the 70s, we had happy family. Right now, we have happy cell phones. And 2050, we have that situation. That is reality. And mark it in your calendar. Today, May 10th, I'm telling you that by 2050, we will be dealing with mass conflict and perhaps some chaos. And the question is that what if our children asked us how we played when we were young, and what was that found out that how we were children, just as children. And then if they ask us what is the meaning of the family, what is the meaning of a love of a mother to her children, to her children, and then the question is that if they ask us what is the happiness, perhaps we do not have any answer for that. And then if they ask us about the happiness, just we ask ourselves, when was the last time we laughed from our bottom of the heart? So you can see that you are missing a lot of humanities in the adaptation by 2050. And the question is that what would happen to all nice, beautiful worlds by 2050? Happiness is only a fantasy dream, supposed during 2050. Love is only a delusion. Empathy exists with no practical implication. And sacrifice is found only in old dictionaries. That is my prediction by adopting AI blindly and saying in 2050. Anyway, so these two sides are actually reflecting that we have some responsibility for our children that we need to actually take care of. we will be accounted for their future. And we will be accounted, remember, whatever action we do to decide their lives, and then someone needs to actually come up and save us from ourselves. Anyway, so going back to this reality, this is the list of the threats and opportunities in terms of the economical impact. It is not about societal impact yet. The societal impact is very, very bad. It doesn't look good. That's it. Thank you very much.